who's coming? Guess who's coming?
JDM Imported. What's up, JDM friends? Welcome back to another episode of the JDM Imported podcast. As always, your host, Dante Prinzo, owner of Elusive Auto Company, Elusive Auto Shine. And we're hitting off episode 22. So, guys, this one, episode 22, this is going to be a really interesting one. So, I'm going to lay out the groundwork, as always, of, the table of contents for this episode. And this is going to be a little weird because we're going to hit on some business points, as always. I have a huge update with the company. And for those that follow me on social, might have been tipped off, but I'm going to make it official. So an update for the shop, big undertaking. Also, as mentioned last time, I'm going to talk about some old school JDM cars, which kind of ties in, hint. And I'm going to start off with something personal and not delightful to talk about, something very real. And as I always kind of preach transparency, I need to take some of my own medicine today. So for those of you that are here to talk JDM cars, that are here to hear about the business, kind of the ins and outs, what's going on, definitely going to get into that, but probably in 20 minutes or so. So if you want to skip past the personal stuff, I totally understand. Again, I'm not here to just like bait anybody into stuff. So I'm just being upfront. I'm going to talk some personal shit right now. And it's heavy, very heavy. It's giving me a chance to reflect. So kind of a huge bomb went off in my life. And I want to share that. I want to share that with you guys because quite honestly, this is a podcast about my journey through business, the development of the business, and these epiphanies, these moments in life that kind of punch you in the gut, they're important to share, I think. So I'm going to share. And again, 20 minutes, roughly 20 minutes or so, I'm going to talk this out, and then we'll get back into Elusive Auto Co. stuff, car stuff, all of that stuff. But so here goes. So a couple weeks ago, interestingly enough, I was just getting ready. I finished up, super busy day at work. Actually a busy week. Just slammed with details. Actually picked up a new client for a really rare, random, I've never even seen one in my life, JDM car to bring in. So that was interesting. The week's going well. And I was really looking forward to having my friends visit. So my wife and I, when we moved to Charlotte, now we're talking like 9 years ago, across the street, we just lucked out. Across the street were a young couple, roughly our age, maybe a year or two younger, but they were right across the street. And me and my wife, being who we are, we're not. Listen, I'm an outgoing guy, right? Like I'm fairly comfortable in pretty much all social situations, but for some reason, and I don't know if you can relate to this or not, but some reason in a neighborhood, like, stay out of my way. Just you stay in your world. I kind of want to pretend that I have a shield around my house and yard. I don't like feeling that people are like judging my lawn. I don't like the snide remarks. I don't like HOAs and presidents and people that get beat up all day and then they just take it out on other neighbors because they're the president of the HOA. Yeah, I'm venting a little bit because I've had experience with this. Like it's a pain in the ass. And my thing is too, I never really went outside. Just kind of a hello and a goodbye, how you doing, with neighbors in the past, because essentially it's, I don't want to have small talk, like when I'm taking the trash out. I just want to get it done. I don't want people, when I'm like getting work done in the garage, I'm working on a car, like I've never been a fan of people just coming in and lingering because I'm like pedal to the metal, right? Like, kids to bed, 3 hours, cranking out this car. Like, I don't want to sit and have some beers tonight. Like, I have a very finite amount of time that I want to use, and I get very focused. So for that, and it's always been this way since our first house when we were really young, 23, till now, I've never really been a neighborly guy, even though that doesn't really hit my MO because I'm, like I said, a fairly outgoing guy. So, I digress. So anyways, this young couple across the street, I just said, hey, how you doing? We were probably there for 6 months, never really had a full conversation, until one day when my parents were visiting. They, strike up conversation with the guy that lives there. His name's Frankie. And turns out he lived in Pittsburgh for a while, huge Steeler fan, and my kids, just like my parents, just like the first day of school, are just kind of nudging me, like, hey, he's real nice. Why don't you go over there and just kind of see if you guys hit it off. It'd be nice to have a friend in a new town. I'm like, Ma, I don't need a friend. It's like I got work. Like, I meet people at the gym. It's whatever. I'm not really like looking for a neighbor friend. So, like the first day at a new school, I'm kind of reluctant, kicking and screaming in, finally to appease my parents, as I still do, even in my late 30s. Shit, I'm going to be, sidebar, my birthday, today is the 13th of February. I'll probably post this on the 14th, and the 18th is my birthday. I'll be 37. But, I finally go over there. He's like working on his truck or something, tinkering in the garage, and I just introduced myself. No big deal. Frankie. Hey, Frankie, I'm Dante. Hey, great. Yeah, sweet. So, and for some reason, as what often happens with friends, with new friends, you kind of find a commonality, right? And for he and I, it was nothing. Like, honestly, we were polar opposites. Like, he's like kind of mountain man-ish, a Marine, listens to like country comedy and, likes bluegrass and moonshine and, wore not camo, but like cargo pants and like very functional tactical stuff. And it's like, and there's me with like, I'm into my clothes. I have my shoe collection. I'm into like cars, but not like Jeeps and trucks. Like, I mean, so we really didn't have that, like that thing, that icebreaker that you usually adopt with a new friend, that you can usually, before you even get into your lives and your history and your background, usually bullshit about cars because you both, you like JDM cars. But an interesting thing happened, and this is a lesson I learned, and I still remind myself to this day of meeting people that, don't seem like they meet, this is going to sound arrogant, but it's true. Meeting people that don't meet my friend profile. And Frankie didn't meet my friend profile whatsoever, for previously mentioned reasons. But because of that, because we didn't have that, like, we both like to hike, or we both like boats, or whatever the hell it is, we did share one similarity, and that's that we were two guys that really liked to dive into what and why. We're two guys that if we're looking for a relationship, friendship, not looking for the superficial stuff, don't really have patience for that in the same small talk, and really, we're very curious about human nature. Like, when I meet someone new, I'm curious why they do what they do, and I kind of want to learn about them if there's someone I'm interested in, and assimilate, their history, their experiences, their personality traits. And I'm being long-winded. Basically, I just like to get to know people. Like, I don't need superficial relationships in my life. I'm not interested. He and I shared that bond, and since we had nothing in common, we quickly swung open the screen door and had just a clear view of who each other was, because all we had to talk about was where we came from, experiences in life, how that affected us, how we felt about this. Even if we're picking up like a current event, the cause and effect of that event, and we got into like quickly, day 1, day 2, week 3, week 4, and I felt like I knew this guy for like 20 years because he told me stuff that he in a short amount of time, and he had a rough upbringing. I could have a podcast on that, but I shouldn't be sharing that. It's personal, but he had a rough upbringing. A lot of stuff went down way rougher than me. I mean, 2 parents, suburbia, never hungry, always knew where I was going to live. Things were easy, right? Zero complaints about childhood. Not that way with Frankie, Divorced parents, unreliable, dad out of the picture, abuse, like so much going on. So, and he ended up, for some reason, since we didn't have kind of that vapid relationship, he really opened up to me. He told me some things in his relationship with his wife, his parents, his background, that he told me he either hasn't told anybody for 20 years, or it's the first time he's said these things out loud. And that's just because for better or worse, I'm kind of a probing personality. Because again, I want enrichment, and I want to give enrichment, So in order to do that, you really need a supreme understanding. And to get that, you have to probe and be curious. And I was, because it's just, again, he is so different than I. But for some reason, we shared this bond that was very deep, a deep connection, and it just spawned quickly. So it's like lesson learned. Put yourself out there. I'm quick to say no. So, and I think those two things kind of work together, So I kind of learned that I put myself out there. I got this friend that I never really wanted or thought I'd be friends with, and is an amazing friendship. An amazing friendship. Quick to say no, meaning that sometimes you meet people and, it's just that vapid relationship, kind of a waste of time. You don't need more of that. And then just move on. And that's, again, for better or worse, that's kind of what I've always done. So, and I've never been really good at retaining friends for that reason. I mean, judge me if you want, but it's, I've had friends that kind of went in a direction that I didn't want to go, bad stuff that I didn't want to get into, so I didn't follow them. And I try to help them a little bit, and then I move on, and sometimes I look back and I'm like, man, maybe I could have hung on that friendship, but I never did. I've always just kind of pivoted and moved on. When somebody's, gets too cool for school, gets into drugs, whatever it may be, and they just don't want to do the things that, positive things, whatever it may be, or just things that are what I would consider a good use of time, I would move on. And I mean, as I'm saying this stuff out loud, I sound like an absolute dick, but that's just, I've never been good at keeping friends. I have 3 really close friends, and that'll likely not change much. I've met some great people. I've had some great relationships, and I love the new relationships I've got from this business. But as far as like true friends that you'll just peel back and be completely honest, not even think at all about how it's received, just people that you can be truly honest with. And I want you to think to yourself, like, how many people, like, might have a lot of friends, but how many people would you tell something that no one knows, and that's absolutely embarrassing and revealing of who you are? And usually that friend number, when you think of that, goes from whatever it may be, and it gets a very narrow margin. And that's kind of where I've been. So yeah, as far as deep connections, close friends, I have 3. Frankie, one of those friends, which was crazy because usually when you meet people late in life, it's hard to get into that tight circle, right? Where you just tell them anything and you feel like you know everything about them. and you can just kind of connect on that deep level. And I had that. So I apologize if this is kind of off the rails, kind of intro to the news. As with always with me, guys, you know what's up. Got long-winded, but I thought it was important to kind of preface the news I'm going to drop. So anyways, they were supposed to come up last week. So again, it's the 13th today. Last weekend, he and his wife were going to come up for a visit 2 weeks ago. And again, Frankie and I were really close, but I'm not one that's constantly kind of massaging relationships. I just, I don't reach out with all my friends every day with a funny GIF or text. I just don't, and it doesn't mean I don't care and I'm not thinking about them. It's just, honestly, I don't know. It's never really been my thing. I'd rather, talk to you every month, but like actually, schedule time, be like, hey man, I'm going to call you at like 5:30 and get like an update on your life, and just like chat about stuff. I'm not really one that's like, oh man, I saw this funny car, check it. I don't know, man. I got blinders on. I don't want to say I stay focused all day, but yeah, whatever. We don't need to dissect that. But anyways, and it's that way with my 3 closest friends. I don't reach out to them every day. Weeks can go by. It's fine, and then we connect and it's like nothing's changed. And, so they were going to come up last weekend, a couple of weeks ago. I was just going to give them a call. I'm like, hey, I'm going to call, see how Frankie is. Because they had, he did a big move, right? So moved from my neighborhood to Asheville, North Carolina, to start his dream, which was a bed and breakfast and in a kind of retreat. And it was this gorgeous, gorgeous piece of land, and his dreams were coming true. I mean, so for the last year and a half, business was going well, and he was up there doing his thing, and we didn't talk as much, but we would schedule visits, whatever. It was good. But anyway, so I didn't call him because I'm like, well, he's going to be up next week. So this is life lesson number 1,000,000 learned about humans, people, and myself. And I've learned this lesson before, is not to hesitate. I mean, that's kind of been my advice for anyone starting a business. There's never a good time. Don't hesitate. Quickly try something, quickly get to a yes or quickly get to a no. Not slowly get to I got to figure it out. So anyways, but so I didn't call him because I was going to see him, and that Monday, the week before they were supposed to come up, we heard from his wife that he killed himself. So he shot himself in their bathroom, in their house, and it just totally caught us off guard, obviously. I mean, this is somebody that when we found out he died, my wife and I, before we knew exactly the details, that's where our mind went first, which makes me feel even worse about everything. Our mind first went to suicide without knowing how he died. And knowing that my mind went there first really makes me feel like a mega dick, because it's like, I know this guy was... regardless of the perception put on, that he was hurting underneath. And I didn't know in the last couple months how bad things got because, again, he's active on social media. We haven't talked for a little while because we had this, and this is just how we've always done it. We had this trip scheduled, and we're like, oh, we're going to have like 3 days where it's going to be like and we're going to get back into it. And we've talked about how we don't keep in touch until we see each other or until we can have a phone conversation. And we always laughed about it, but because of that, for the 2 months prior to this happening, I didn't know how bad things were for him. And I'm not saying, because I think it's arrogant in defeating for somebody to say they could have stopped it, because you don't know that, you just don't. There's no factual data. There's nothing that you can say, if we had this conversation, if I was there, if, it's nonsense. Maybe not. But you can't, if you're going to say I could have stopped it, then you also have to acknowledge the fact that you couldn't, because both are fictitious. They're just kind of hypothesis. Obviously, I play that game because I didn't know what was going on. And again, we look at the surface. We look, Bliss Farm and Retreat, bios on them, happy couple. He and his wife did this thing, and it looked fantastic. And people are always commenting how beautiful they are and happy they are, and the pictures and the videos and all of this. And yeah, I mean, it turns out the last couple months they were separated. This combined with it being the off season there, so he's not busy working, and he's the type that really needed to be busy. Idle mind is detrimental to someone like him. So that combined with the isolation of where they are, combined with the off season, the marriage, apparently business wasn't going as well as perceived. And when you pile all those things on, and some other personal stuff unraveling, and I truly do believe, even in this moment, that he'd be fucking pissed that he did it. I think it was a moment, an emotion that he got caught up in. I'm not going to say it wouldn't have happened. It might not have happened that Monday, but it would have happened another day. It's a sickness. But yeah, it's just he went to therapy that day. Therapist said he looked good, but there was all this underlying stuff, and one night it just all kind of came to a head. It erupted, and he did it in the bathroom, at like 9:00 on a weeknight. And I guess, the reason I felt it was important to share is, one, for selfish reasons. It just feels, like, even though I'm talking to a lot of people right now, I'm sitting here by myself, chatting it out. So my wife and I, and she's the best. Like, her and I have the type of relationship where we never run out of anything to say. We talk ad nauseum over everything. I mean, talk about dissecting. And she's kind of, and I think that's why I had such a special relationship with Frankie, because it reminded me of my relationship with my wife. We couldn't be more different. We don't like anything of the same. She thinks cars are point A to point B. Even sports, like, she's gotten out of football. We used to watch football together. She's moved on from that. She doesn't like bikes. She doesn't care about material things. She's just like your quintessential Asian, save every penny, work hard, nose to the grindstone, and, I'm a loose cannon. So, but I think that's why, like I said, Frankie and I connected so quickly, because it did remind me of the most special relationship in my life, and that's with my wife, And maybe since that's what it is, that's why I don't have a lot of room for deep friendships. I mean, yeah, again, don't get me wrong, at the car shows and the emails and the DMs, I have a lot of people that I enjoy to hear from, but as far as those deep connections of someone that you can rely on, not many. I had 3, and now I have 2 in my life, And I don't want to say it's because I wasn't up on what was going on with Frankie. I wasn't checking in enough. Again, I'm not going to play that game, but yeah, it was the hardest week I've had to go through. All this stuff, stress with business, with family, with just dumb shit with the house, with every I want to take this to really learn. I don't want to go through this again. It's miserable. It's awful. There was like sleepless nights, and I'm not one that's overly emotional, like outwardly emotional, right? So this was really sad. I didn't shed a tear, but it just fucked me up internally, because I'm just like, I'm up at night, and you can't help but play things through, and it really, the lesson that I gather from this, and it's something I already knew, and it's something you all know, right? It's something like, there's those certain things that we just know, like we know better, but you still can't but help to fall into it, the certain pitfalls. And when someone tells you, you're like, yeah, no shit, like, obviously. But still, we continue to do these patterns. And that's, the pattern of succumbing to illusions, to not being curious, for just taking things at face value, reading the article instead of the story, looking at the book cover instead of what's between the front and the back. All of those things, like, we all kind of fall into. And, this is a prime example. I mean, if, like, for instance, I think this is a good analogy. So, for instance, and we're at 25 minutes. I'm going to keep talking about this just because I'm on a roll. So, if you checked back in, give me another 10 minutes or so. If you're trying to skip this personal stuff and you want to get to the business JDM stuff. So, but, yeah, so, like, car guy analogy, right? We see guys, posting on social or at meets or whatever, and we have car envy, right? You have that car envy, like, damn, like, it's got a Mark IV Supra, and it's like, oh, those are so expensive now, and it's like, and you could start getting down on yourself, like, I don't have that, like, and then it snowballs, like, where am I in my life, my job, why can't I afford the car that I want, I really want it, and it's like, again, we're just looking at the thing that we want to look at, which may be behind the curtain. I'm not saying this is true or not, but it's a plausible reason that maybe that guy with a Mark IV Supra lives in a studio apartment, Maybe he's 35 and lives with his parents and just makes enough to pay for that Supra, Or maybe he is rich and maybe he is so empty inside that the only way to fill that void is with that car. And that car has squandered away relationships that would have really enriched his life. Things like that you don't envy. No one envies that at all, ever, right? But these aren't the things we think of. Like, I try to think of the bright and the dark side of everything because we just see the light. We just see the filter of everything. I'm not just talking social. I'm just talking life because I know it. I know any of you that have been to a Cars and Coffee, a show, maybe not now, maybe when you were younger, you've had car envy and you start to reflect a little bit. Not saying you get depressed, but you just reflect a little bit. Or you jump to a conclusion that is not favorable for your sanity. You know what I mean? And that's just it's not the truth. None of it is. It's all speculative, right? Unless you actually know that person and their story. And even still, who cares? They're different. We're all different. So, and it's like, on that tip, even with like, you know what? We'll use me as an example. Because I get a lot of emails and in DMs about, guys that want to start their own business. And it's like, man, I just don't know. It's not the right time. Well, my stance on that. Like, it's never the right time. Cut some stuff out of your life and just go for it now. Because if you wait, it's not going to get better. You don't have the money now, whatever. Like, throw it all out the door, sell some shit, and, move in with a friend. Move back with your family. Cut everything out. Like, do whatever you can to just try it and get to the yes or the no. Maybe it only lasts a year and you're like, fuck it, this wasn't the good fit for me. And you roll it out and you move on to the next and you go back to your 9 to 5 or whatever it may be. Maybe you find out it works, you're tuned to it, and 5 years from now you are so glad you didn't wait that 5 years for things to be better, to be more convenient, so whatever. So, and I've always been consistent with that stance. It's a hard lesson I've learned. That's why I started this business, what I think is way later than I should have, because of comfort and convenience, which is just a total facade. None of it's comfortable and convenient, Even if somebody has a lot of money, it's not comfortable and convenient to start a business. So, but yeah, I mean, even with my business, there is no way, since I waited so long in life, till I had a family with 2 kids, house, all that stuff, health insurance, childcare, all these things, and it always comes down to money and responsibilities, right? If I didn't have my wife with an awesome job, she has a great job. If she wasn't in the picture, or if she was stay at home, yes, I wouldn't have been able to do this, So for those of you that are thinking like, man, how could he? That's how I did it. I could have never started this business and been following, and I'm throwing up my air quotes, my dream, my passion right now. I could have never done this if my wife didn't have a stable and good job. I rely on her. We rely on her for the family. So I could do this crazy shit. So I could just fly off the cuff and buy cars from Japan and just start loading up our garage with stuff. And I mean, it's still not easy. My business is sustaining itself. I can contribute to the household. But I would have never got to this point where I can contribute without her. I could have never done it on my own. I would have been a recruiter and stayed in the recruitment industry, and this would have been a hobby for the rest of my life. Unless no, there's no other way, because I would never give up my family or anything like that. This would just not be a thing. And as important as it is to me, I mean, family's the most important. And if this doesn't work or it's that much of a drain on the family, then, man, tail between the legs, I'd go back to it. Obviously, that's not going to happen, though, because I am relentless with this shit. But I'm just saying, that's kind of the mentality that you need to be in. And I think that's something that we can all learn is, you know the truth about me. And you might have come to your own conclusions, of... And the reason I'm talking about this is just from responses I've had and people wanting to start and excuses and or man, I wish I could. And it's like, you know what? Don't compare yourself to me ever, because I'm super fortunate. You might not have a situation like mine. Maybe you have a family that relies on you, and you know what? Yeah, maybe you can't start a business. But what I said earlier about if you're just waiting for it to be more comfortable and you can cut some things out, then cut them out and just do it, But yeah, I don't know. I thought that was a worthwhile thing to share. I hope I didn't, contradict myself too much there. But it's just, I don't know. As always, guys, I just want to share the truth, and I think that as we get car envy at car meets, as we see pictures of a couple that looks super happy, like Frankie and his wife, you never know what's beneath the surface. So I guess the bottom line is, don't hold yourself accountable to something you don't know about, Don't use a benchmark that's a shadow, to grade your life. I mean, because that's essentially what we all do to a certain point, So me, I've started this business. Don't get down on yourself if maybe you can't, because I have a situation right now that is very favorable to starting a business, And then you can think whatever you want about me, but I just want you to know, the truth, because I think that a lot's lost in us putting on facades. We could all benefit from the truth, being honest with people about how you feel, being honest with business partners, being honest, most importantly, being honest with yourself, about who you are. Are you that friend? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you a worker bee? Are you too nice? Are you a dick? Whatever it may be, let's be real with ourselves, Like I've admitted to myself, like, yeah, I could be nicer and I could be better at, maintaining relationships. But that's not me. It's not natural. It's against the grain. And I'm okay with that. I'm comfortable with that. Rather than always trying to seek something. And I think that's big thing that Frankie always found difficult, is that he was always reaching for approval from everybody because he didn't get it growing up. So he was always trying to get approval. And in turn, because he was trying to get approval, might not have been super honest with himself, and who he was and what he needed. And that, as we hear, can result in something just catastrophic, So, I don't know. I'm done with this. Done with this rant. I don't know where it went. I can't wait to listen to this. It's probably sounds like fucking nonsense. Who knows what I'm talking about? But like I said, guys, I just wanted to share. I hope you learned something from it. I mean, I sure as hell did. I hope there was a good takeaway as far as transparency, truth. Just I think a way to live your life. And I try to mix in some business things. If that makes sense to you or not, who knows? But there it is. I just a little more about my story. So I wouldn't hold me as a benchmark for anything. You heard about Frankie's story, and hopefully we're all just a little more honest with everybody, including ourselves. So let's close that one out. On to the next. And there's no good transition to this, but I'm turning the energy back up because I said I had some news, right? You guys ready for the news? So I did something probably stupid, not super responsible, but you know what? I've been so responsible for so long, and again, it's not supernatural to me. So, and who knows? Maybe this is a compensation for what happened, but it just got me thinking. Like, you know what? I got to be honest with who I am. I work so well under pressure. That's where I strive. That's where I make my leaps forward. So I put some pressure on myself, big time. Bought a car. I bought a car, and I don't need one, right? I mean, I talked myself into it because I'm like, listen, I have this importing company, this detailing company. I'm a car guy. I go to all the events, and it's like, but I don't have anything to share. Like, I don't have my own icebreaker of a vehicle, which I've always had. I've always had, like, since before I could drive. And like, I haven't had that for years. I gave it up, for this business. I mean, that was one of the sacrifices, which, I mean, wow, big deal. I had to like give up, having a fun car for a while. I mean, it just goes to show like how jaded we all are. Like how jaded I am, and I think I'm fairly grounded, but even me, it's like, I sit here and like, oh, it was so hard giving up stuff. Like, whatever, it's just stuff. Like, these experiences, I can't buy these experiences. I don't care what happens with this business. I would never take it back because, man, was this an experience. But anyways, so I bought this car. It is a Datsun 510. I have wanted one since high school. Yes, I know, it's not sexy. I didn't import like I really kind of wanted to, a Soarer and done it up proper. I don't know. That little, it's the quintessential clay model with 4 cuts to make a vehicle, It's so ugly, it's beautiful to me. So, and I've always liked Datsuns, especially heavily modded Datsuns. I mean, let's be real, guys. I'm not a purist. Not looking to like restore this to OEM spec. This is a hardcore resto mod / race car build. And it's wrapped up in a nice little bow and in the illusion of, oh, it's a smart business move, right? It's a marketing move because now I'll be able to go to shows and put stickers on it and have my business cards and brochures in it and like, hey, this is what I do. I'm one of you guys, which makes me feel a little more comfortable because I found myself like kind of validating my cardom to car guys when I'm like I don't need to, but I kind of do because I'm the dude rolling up in a Ridgeline, trying to hand out like it's, yeah. It was I said earlier that I don't usually feel comfortable in social settings. That would be one of those uncomfortable moments. Again, I just plow through it, but that would be the type of moment that would be like awkward at times. So how did I remedy that? I got myself a car, and I got myself a car that is not a car. I got a shell, totally stripped, sandblasted epoxy primer, not a bolt, gasket, anything on it, nothing. So I picked that up, and that's why I went with it, because I mean, quite honestly, I just thought like that is in my mind. That's what I wanted to find. And I'm like, I need to find the abandoned project. Because then you know what you have, right? With these old cars, like, who wants to deal with, you start sanding and it's like, oh, there's filler. You keep sanding. Oh, there's more filler. You keep sanding some more. Be like, oh, I can see the other side of this panel. And all of a sudden you start chipping it out and you're like, oh, there's like no floor left. Or like, this has been patched up 5 times with like a loogie welder and like all this random shit that you find out. I know what I have. It had some rust. It has some holes in it that was sandblasted. Nothing that can't be patched up. Nothing major. Doesn't need new floors. Frame rails are good. No bends. No repairs. So I got to see it naked. I got it primered. Man, it's exactly how I wanted. And the rest of the car was in boxes. And the caveat, which quite honestly, and again, I'm not a purist. This makes sense. I kind of wanted to do a Datsun with a 13B. Rotary motor, but this one came with an SR. So a red top, old school S13 SR motor, and I'm sticking with it because it's there. The guy started like the engine wiring's all there, which is good in the ECU. So I just need to do the body wiring, which I'm going to totally race spec it out. This is going to be, and I think that's the other reason I'm very excited about this car is it's a ton of work, but it's going to be like satisfying work. You know what I mean? Like it's satisfying when you just have like 7 relays, and it's just, you're wiring up like wipers, lights, fan, basics, kill switch, just, oh, it's going to be so nice. And everything, all of that stuff that I hate because of like, if anyone's changed the coil pack on a JZ motor or an SR motor, or like even touched anything on the harness that's near the turbo side, it just turns to dust in most cases. And like, I hate that. So everything's just going to be fresh. Fresh. I'm going to spend probably too much money on all new hardware, wires, hoses, vibrant fittings, like, because to me, that's the stuff, like, and maybe this is like the more mature me, like the old me be like, hey, turbo upgrade, stand alone, let's go. But now I'm like, I want this thing like proper, fresh, and then I can worry about more power. So total rebuild of the motor, back to stock, because how much power do you need in a car that's going to be like barely 2,000 pounds? And maybe, depending on how I set it up, it might be like a drop under. Let's be real, like anything over 200 horsepower feels quick, And then if you get up to like roughly 3, like, yeah, it's murder row. It's good. It'll be real good. So, but anyway, so it's, so naked chassis, boxes of parts. Of course, the seller said it's, pretty much all there. It's, maybe like 80%, it's missing a bunch of stuff and like all the annoying things. Like I just ordered a whole new set of like all body bolts, which again, it's like, it hurts spending like $200 on hardware, but like now I know I have like bolts in excess and they're nice and zinc coated and they're not rusty. And, so if anything's in bad shape, rounded, I just pitch it, new bolt. Actually, I'm just going to do new bolts on everything. But, in the pressure part being, financial, I spent money, company money on this, which mildly irresponsible, but not really, because it's a tax write-off. Figure roughly 20% off everything that I have into it. I see good value in marketing. There is some value there. And the flip side of it, the market with Datsuns, with 510s right now, if I did say, like, if an opportunity, because I always want to be ready for an opportunity. So, I want to like keep this car forever. Like this would be one that I want to keep in the stable forever, but they are appreciating. Clean ones go for a pretty penny when they're all done. Even heavily modded ones, even ones cut up with fuel cells and full cages, are going for some nice money, and it's still going on the rise because it's just getting super hard to find chassis, parts, everything. So, my thing is I fix this up. It's good to go. Fresh paint. Everything looks good. It's driving nice. And if, say, the opportunity comes up to, I don't know, it's between me keeping that car and opening another location. Like, yeah, peace out. Car's gone. Because, family, business, and then like shit that I'm interested in. That's pretty much the order. So I think from like a responsibility standpoint, I'm like, I'm not really going to lose much, if any, maybe on this build. And I've even spent like more than when I figured it all out in my head already than I thought. But, just on like, instead of like stuff that I didn't really need to do, like race pedals, because it's like by the time you get the factory ones to work, then you're dealing with like, you need new master cylinders and the setup there. It's like, you're kind of getting close to the cost. So maybe for another, like, I think I figured like another 150. Yeah, I get race pedals and they look sweet and I won't have any reservoirs in the engine bay, which is like, again, I'm looking like marketing when people like look at my work for like detailing or the types of cars that I deal with. Like, yeah, it's got to look nice. It's got to look specced out. So I don't know. Let me know what you think. I think it's mildly irresponsible, but I can totally twist it in my head that it makes sense, and that's why I did it. And I think the other thing is, what kind of put me over the edge is it's like, why not? Why not? If it's not going to be detrimental to my life, it's just adding more stress, there's never going to be a more comfortable time because I'll just be doing something else. I don't feel like being comfortable. I don't want to have everything padded. So I'm like, I don't have to worry about anything, because if I did have another chunk to invest, I'd put it into the company to do something else or get some more cars. So I'm pretty much, in lieu of bringing another car in, doing this because I think this is something that's a little more active. I can build a story around. I can market the business in. And fortunately, I do have a buyer for my FC. Yes, the right-hand drive FC that's been in my presence forever. I think in the next couple weeks, maybe he's going to pick it up. So that helps. And I think when that's gone, I'm going to bring another car in from Japan. So great. I get to do both. Awesome. I'm an idiot. But yeah, and you know what I'm going to do, guys? And I'm going to remind you at the end of the episode, because I think this is like a kind of an important thing. I don't know. Maybe it's important, maybe it's not. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But I at least want to try it. And that is, I'm going to start a build series. So I'm going to continue with the podcast in this kind of format where it's business updates, some information, maybe bring somebody on, kind of the more formal podcast setting. Great. I'm going to keep this going. And I'm not starting a new podcast. I'm just going to add some extra episodes. And I have them titled like in iTunes or something. But I just thought that, especially like I haven't really seen this. Like, because again, we like to watch YouTube. And I don't know about you. I love following builds on YouTube. But maybe it'd be fun to listen to a build, right? Not like I'm not going to have you guys there when I'm welding. Like, so no. It like kind of recaps, like this week I did X, this week I did Y, this is what I ran into, this is what I'm happy about, this is what I'm mad about, blah, blah, blah. And again, as per the underlying tone of all of this, it'll be totally transparent. If I fuck it up, if I make something happen that's great, you'll know about it. I'm going to let you know everything. I'm going to let you in. So yeah, I think I'm going to do a build series. No, I know I'm going to do a build series on the 510. So stay tuned for that. I'll have it like in iTunes with episodes, and I'll kind of like separate and stuff so it's easy to follow. But and I'll have it in the title as well if you listen on other platforms. But yeah, so we'll do the build series, which will just be kind of updates of the Datsun and what I'm doing, because it's going to be, and you can kind of follow along too, because I think I'll have like the episodes kind of coincide with like social updates there, so you can get your pictures with the audio, and I think it'll be fun. And again, if not, it's like why I started this podcast to begin with. If no one listens to it, it'll give me kind of a nice tool in personal development, just to kind of look back. Some people journal, and this to me is like a form of journaling. I'll have this forever. I can look back. I can listen back. I can listen back to this when I'm old, and I don't know, get some levity on a situation or something. So, yeah, let me know what you think about that. And also, You know what? I'm gonna ask you guys a flavor. If you could share this episode, just if you could, because not for me. I just feel like it's, and honestly, I don't know if I was eloquent enough. I think there were some eloquent points, lost with some just gibberish in the middle, but just on my experience, what my friend went through, and what I learned from it, and just kind of some understanding on kind of where we're at right now, all of us, and how we judge ourselves, how we view others. It's just not accurate. I don't think it's accurate enough. I see it. I see it affects people that I love, not even just Frankie, that get down on themselves, comparing themselves to others that they don't know anything about. Just like the couple that can get down on themselves because like, oh, Frankie and Kelly, they start this like beautiful bread and breakfast and they look so happy, and oh, my husband, he's just not like so caring and he's so shitty, and oh, my wife, she doesn't like care about herself and take care of herself. We all get down on ourselves and down on others, and it's like their relationship was in the fucking toilet. We're comparing ourselves to some beautiful pictures and a nice story and some blog posts. We all do it. Got to be honest with yourself. We all do it to a point. I usually don't like to generalize, but I see too much of it. And even for me, sometimes I feel like I'm immune to it, and I catch myself. I do. Especially with business stuff, because I'm like, why am I not where X, Y, and why am I not where they are? And it's like, they might have, how I said, like my wife, like I wouldn't have been able to make this leap without her. Maybe they have like some huge investor or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know. So why compare yourself? You got your own situation. All I can say is don't hesitate. Don't hesitate in either doing something or moving on from it. But just don't hesitate. Either get it out of your head or do something. Live in the present or make waves for the future. So yeah, that's my ask. Share this with some friends on social. Just share this. I hope someone can get something out of it, even if they're not car people. It's a story that sucks, and maybe it'll awaken something in someone that needs it. I just think that's important. So I think we should all think about that. So great. Share it. Don't share it. I'm just asking. Old JDM cars. So speaking of Datsun, guys, speaking of my 510, I thought we'd talk about Datsun a little bit. The 240s, the 280s, S chassis, S30s, let's just really think about what Datsun meant to the Japanese car culture. I love old Celicas, right? Or Celicas, however you want to pronounce it. From early 70s, I think they're beautiful. Their body lines, the old beams motors, and I just think they're gorgeous. I love them. But Datsun, I feel like really kind of made Japanese sports cars a thing, and it's hard to argue, right? So they're an old company, so founded in 1931. So and they're not producing vehicles anymore, like under the Datsun name, but old company, forward-thinking company. A little info, and again, like, guys, I'm not a genius. I just did a little research, jotted down some notes, so take that for what it is, but it's not like I'm just pulling this stuff out of the air. So anyways, Dot Motor Car, named, they used to be called Dot Motor Car Company, which I thought was interesting. So anyways, they got into, they had larger vehicle production, they had smaller vehicle production, as in the size of the cars. Nissan took control of Dot Motor Company in 1934, and they just named it Datsun. Basically means son or loss, which, and not son like this is my son, like honor the sun, because it's the land of the rising sun. So that's your tie in there. Getting into like the 240s, the 260s, 280s, we all know that that's basically the moniker for the displacement of the cars, the S30 chassis, the 2.4 liter, 2.6, the 2.8. And they had, I just think it's interesting because they've had that power plant in those cars for so long, and it's a company that, like, the more you read about it, they are really resilient, and they really capitalize, as with a lot of automakers, on war, right? So providing vehicles, cheap vehicles, in or around wartime when economies crashed, right? And this is something I kind of wanted to tie in. This is something that I think about. I think about myself. I think we all kind of should. If you're looking at starting a business, if you're in a business, even with work, is to be flexible on what your perception, like what your dream is, right? Like my dream is to import RX-7s and Supras all day. Not feasible. I have to be flexible. I have to be able to kind of like pivot where the fork develops. And okay, so there's some money in detailing that can support, buying more cars. So okay, I'm going to do some of that, and got to be a little pliable and flexible. And Datsun, like I said, they're not the only ones that did it, but when passenger car production was restricted, Datsun, focused on building trucks, for the Army. So this was a company that was making, just normal cars, get people from A to B, and all of a sudden they're producing trucks, and not sexy trucks, just basic trucks for the Imperial Japanese Army, and then when the war ends and, country hits recession, making cheap cars, just providing cheap basic economy cars to get people going. And that's really what afforded them the chance, that and with Nissan's help, to start developing and designing these unique cars at the time for a new market in America. I mean, so the 240s, called the Fair Ladies, in Japan, it's not like it was just for the American market, but it was a big deal rolling it out to the American market. I mean, these were power plants that were in place already, but this is something that companies have not done before. A Japanese sports car, at least not done with success. It just wasn't a thing. And it's like, how are we going to get Americans interested in small displacement, light, good handling cars that don't make a lot of noise, that aren't really fast, and don't really check any of the boxes of what, like, the sports car culture wanted at the time. But they just built, good-looking cars. I mean, I think. And it was just different enough to grab some attention and start a revolution, if you will, of Japanese cars. So, and it was a very new thing, because it wasn't until I think the 60s that Datsun started producing cars as Nissans. So the Patrol and the Cedric, I think, were the first ones. And they were in the 60s that they tested that market as Nissans, and really not again until the 80s when Nissan did the Fairlady Z, so with the Nissan badging. So before that, it was just Datsun. And with these 240s, it was a slow burn, but they really stuck with it. And I just think that I mean, the old Fairladies, I mean, they were just a small little roadster, kind of looked like an MG, looked like any other little roadster really from that time. And then when they went into the Z cars, with that long, aggressive hood, the short back, I mean, it's it's a style. Talk about, like, I mean, they didn't really change much on it through the years, through that run of Datsun Zs, until the 80s hit. And then I don't know how you feel about it, but they got kind of weird. I wasn't a big fan of it, but yeah, I mean, this brand, I just, I look at how many how many they sold of the Bluebirds. So that's Bluebirds, the 510. How many they sold of just this economy car, right? The Bluebirds, and like back in the day, it was just outrageous numbers, hundreds of thousands of units of Bluebirds in the 60s, in the early 60s, they were clicking out each year. And it's just, and then they started marketing that to the States as a kind of a sporty, dadmobile. Because again, kind of playing on it doesn't have much power, but it can handle, and maybe handling and braking could be fun. And it's just, I really think that they were, in my opinion, one of the companies that really kind of paved the way for some different thinking, that you didn't have to get a European car to have something that was fun around the turns and that was just sporty. Because there's a difference between a muscle car and a sports car, right? I think we can all agree on that. There's a difference between like the 4,000-pound sled that can barely come to a stop, but throws you back in the seat, that doesn't have a headrest. You feel like your neck's going to snap off, but you better stop before that turn because it's like super wobble, solid live axles. And it's like, oh wait, 4-wheel disc brake or drum brakes, you might not. I just really think that it's one of those brands I've always been a fan of. And I've always, if there's been articles about them, I've always just kind of read up on them. The few books that I've actually read in my life has been, on their history and kind of the things they did around like the oil crisis, and just like in the trucks, and just how, honestly, I'm mindful of them, with my day-to-day in the business, because I see a company that, they might not be producing vehicles anymore, but they had a long run, and they went through some really tough times in the country and in the world, and without much outside help, stayed afloat. And I think that's something that we can all kind of learn something from. It's easy to stay afloat when people are throwing you lifelines, right? It's not as easy when you're just doing it, with not much of a safety net. So there is some tidbits you can find out there about kind of the relaunch that Datsun did in 2012, 2013, India market, Russia, Lebanon, places like that. But not a whole lot. That would be something we'd be interested in talking about, or at least that I wanted to dig into. It was mainly I just wanted to chat about my love for the Datsuns, what I can take away from it as far as kind of how they ran themselves, and my 510 that I'm really excited about. And and I'm going to bring this one to a close here. We'll talk some more cars. I actually was looking up some auction reports on some old cars that I wanted to go over next time. So, and I have some other things with the business that actually I wanted your advice on, but I don't want to get into that here. Some services, some things I'm going to be adding to the company. And like I said, we'll walk through next time. We'll talk about what I want to add, and we're going to run through the auctions. And then probably before that, I'm going to put out my first build episode of the 510, because I already have some updates. I can't help myself. It's kind of like a drug. Like, whenever I have free time at work, if I'm waiting for an appointment, I just I need to touch it. I'm just like, it's going to be a gorgeous looking engine, because I just have it sitting out on the stand, cleaning it, painting it, getting everything purty. And it's, I can't help myself. I need to help myself and do some other things, but I digress. So, as always, thanks for the listen, guys. Thanks for hanging in there. This was kind of a weird one, but and to be honest with you, I kind of got thrown off track. I had some more that I wanted to dive into with the Datsun, but this is it's starting to run long, and I didn't realize I'd be on a personal tip for so long. But we'll get back on track. As always, follow me on social, Elusive Auto Company for all the JDM stuff, Elusive Auto Shine for detailing. I know most of you aren't local, but hey, maybe you can maybe you can learn a thing or two. Maybe you just want to throw me some love. Either way, do what you do. And again, I appreciate any share of this episode to anyone you think might benefit, and just kind of a quick reality check on what's going on in their life and other people's life. So next time we'll be a little more upbeat. But anyways, as always, enjoy the drive. Peace.